Now, what if you want to get more data about a user from Facebook, like their likes, the events they have attended, their photos, their friends list, and so on? Let me show you how to implement that. So here in Facebook, go to App Review. You can see our application is currently in development mode and it's not public. And if you scroll down, under approved items, you can see we have 3 login permissions: email, public profile, and user friends. So these permissions give us some basic information about the user. For example, public underline profile gives us access to first name, last name, profile picture, gender, and age range. So every app that we create on Facebook by default has these permissions. Now, if you want to get additional permissions, you need to request them. So you need to go through an approval process. Now here on the top, we've got submit items for approval. Let's take a look here. So here on the left, you can see various permissions. You can click them to see what information each permission gives you. For example, here we've got user likes, which gives us access to pages and open graph objects that a user has liked. Below that, you can see some common scenarios. So if you want to use any of these permissions in your app, you select them here and then add them for approval. Once they go through the approval process in Facebook, then they will appear under approved items. So you will have additional permissions here. Now for this demonstration, I'm going to put the application in production mode because none of these permissions are currently in effect. And this is indicated by an empty circle. When I put the application in public mode or in production mode, these circles will turn green. So on the top, I'm going to make this public, confirm. And now look, these permissions are in effect. So this is what you need to do from Facebook perspective. But how about our Angular app? How can we get these additional properties about the user? Let me show you. The first thing you need to know is that in login method, you need to use pop-up authentication method. Because once the user logs in, we want to execute some additional code. And as I explained before, this is not possible if you use the redirect method. Now I'm going to slightly modify this method. In the configuration object for the login method, I'm going to add another property, scope, which is a string array. And here I pass all the permissions that my application needs. So these are the login permissions here. For example, I'm going to copy public underline profile, add it here, as well as user underline friends. So these permissions that you add here determine the scope of a user's login. And this will impact the notification that the user sees the first time they log in via Facebook. For example, if you request their photos or their likes, that notification will tell the user that Pepper requires access to this information. And then it's up to them to decide if they want to approve it or not. Now, before going any further, let me show you something. Save, back to the browser. I'm going to log in. Look at this after login entry in the console. This object we're logging here is this auth state that we receive once the user logs in. Let's take a closer look at this object. I'm going to expand the Facebook property. So look, currently, this Facebook object has only 2 properties, access token and provider. This access token is only available after login here. And this is the reason I explained we need to use the pop-up authentication method so we get that access token. We're going to use this access token to call an endpoint on Facebook, which is called Graph API. And then we can get additional data about a user. So here in our login method, we need to store that access token in our database. So I'm going to use this.angularfire.database.object. I'm going to store our users under users node. And the key I'm going to use here will be the unique identifier that Firebase generates for each user. So auth state.uid. So this will reference a node in Firebase, and then I'm going to update it and set its access token to auth state.facebook.access token, which is what I showed you. Now we have a red underline here because this Facebook interface in Angular Fire does not have a declaration for access token. So we need to cheat here and change the type of auth state to any. And this will resolve this problem. Save. Now let's see what happens when I log in. So back here, I'm going to log out first and then log in again. Okay, now let's go to our Firebase database. You can see under users, we have a new node, and the key for this node is the unique identifier that Firebase generates for each user. And below that, we've got access token. And this is our Facebook access token. So we can use this to call Graph API. Now, back in ng on init, before going any further, I want to show you something in the console. Auth state. I want to show you this auth state that we get when we subscribe to auth observable. So back in our Pepper app, let's expand this object. Look at the Facebook property. Okay, look, this Facebook object now is different from the Facebook object that you saw earlier when we logged in. Here we have properties like display name, email, photo URL, provider ID, and UID, and this is the identifier that is used by Facebook. Note that here we do not have access token. That's why in the login method, I saved it in the database so we can access it in ng on init. Okay? Now back in the browser, I'm going to use that access token and this user ID to get information about this user from Graph API.